2021 is going to be a very exciting year, one way or another. Let's get into the first of the business board meetings for the year. So, formal welcome to everyone. A few formalities to get through. In terms of technical arrangements, today's meeting is being held by Zoom video conferencing and will be live recorded for governance purposes. If you experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, please refresh your connection in the first instance. If it becomes apparent that we've lost members and we're no longer quorate, it may be necessary to adjourn the meeting. Can I remind board members that this is a private meeting which only business board members and specific officers are invited to attend, so I trust you're all in a secure place. You could do a roll call to ensure everyone who's online and present. If I could just ask you to confirm your names, please. Tina?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Tina. Welcome. Mark Dorset?
Yes, here.
Hi, Mark. Faye Holland?
Yes, here.
Amir?
Yes, here.
Amir. Al Kingsley?
Yes, here.
Hi, Al. Nikki? No, Nikki. Jason Mellard?
Yes, here.
Jason. Andy Neely? Okay. Nitin?
Yes.
Rebecca Stevens?
Yes.
Kelly Swingler? No, Kelly. Mayor James Palmer?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, James. Councillor John Holditch?
Present, correct.
Thank you, John, and myself, Austin Adams. To the meeting. Nick, if there are any apologies that we have, I don't believe so, but please correct me.
Thanks, Chair. No, we've had no apologies.
Okay, and you've made a note of those people present. Thank you, Nick. Declarations of interest. This is an opportunity to declare pecuniary interests or any other conflicts of interest. Do members have any conflicts to declare? If you could...
Got an interest in Peterborough University, but it's not a monetary one.
Yeah, noted. I don't see any others. Please shout. Okay, thank you. On to the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of November. We're asked to approve the minutes of that meeting as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with the proposal to click their raised hand function to alert me to any issues? Tina, yes, please.
Yes, this might be more of a matters arising, but in relation to what we said we would do in relation to the agri-tech strategy,
Yes.
the implication is that we're going to somehow redraft that, and that wasn't quite what we said. We said we would leave that as it is and then move on into something more concrete.
Yes, indeed. So the intention there, which gets caught up in the action schedules, which I think we'll come on to, is to use the IFM, who have a well-proven process for decanting all of that kind of information down into a more user-friendly document and prioritizing the key issues, for them to help us to do that. And Louisa has a meeting scheduled, I think it may be tomorrow actually, which I've been invited to talk them through the mechanics of how we do that in the most efficient way. So that's certainly the intention. We're not going to go back to start again. I noted one thing on rereading the minutes over the weekend, just as a matter of record, on the matter of, we debated the option for, the option for the relocation of funding, where there were two options, one being to put the funding back into the very short cycle grant funding, the other one to put it back into the broader pot. The minutes note that it was resolved unanimously, and as I recall, I thought there were two people that were not in favour of that. It was a majority decision. Do any other board members have recollection of that, just for the record? Thank you, Tina. Could we note that, Nick, that it's on page 8 of the minutes, that
Hey, Chair, yes, the minutes actually say that it was resolved unanimously, but then it has a separate recommendation underneath which says that it was resolved. Okay,
fine. Okay, as long as we've captured the sentiment of that, as long as you're happy with that, Nick, that's fine.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, see no objections, then we'll consider those to be carried. Thank you. On to the matters at hand then. We did ask for a verbal update on COVID-19 and the situation with the EU Brexit decision during the holiday, anticipating that we may have some more challenges to face in this meeting. I think thankfully some of that's been put to bed, but Chris George, if you could just give us an update, please, on where you see things, that would be most welcome.
Brilliant. Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start with COVID first, because that seems to still be the big one that we're dealing with. 90% of the calls still coming in are COVID related, people asking for money. We seem to have ramped up a little bit in the past couple of weeks, and quite a few mental health problems are coming through. So we've got some good signposting that we're doing, and we're making sure that we're dealing with people appropriately, and not just dealing with them quickly, spending time with them. The advisors have now got time to sit with them and speak to them. A lot of these business owners just want someone to talk to for half an hour and bounce ideas off of, and make sure that they're not missing out on anything. So that really is taking up 90% of the time of the Growth Hub at the moment. We've got two teams. I've got two guys, two business advisors taking phone calls all day, every day, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I've got two young ladies that we've taken on a temporary basis who are answering the emails. Most of the emails are signposting, therefore that's why they're doing the signposting through the emails. It's a little bit easier, but still as intensive. It's still, they're still dealing with big numbers. We've got on the back of COVID, we've got a startup program coming. I've wanted to launch a startup program for startups for ages, and we're finally launching it on the 25th of this month, until the 31st of March. I'm using some base supplementary money that we got for it was originally for Brexit, but I'm going to use it for this, and that will help. I really need to get the numbers booked into that as well. We got a massive amount of interest from startups in the first and second lockdown. People seem to want to start up their own businesses, and there was nowhere for them to go. So we finally dealt with that, and that will be going forward. EU exit's slightly simpler. We couldn't manage the call center. We haven't got the staff numbers to take on an EU exit call center in the Growth Hub. So that's been outsourced to the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Bridge has been excellent helping me. He really has turned stuff around quickly. They've got two advisors taking incoming phone calls, just constantly taking phone calls, and it was constant yesterday apparently. And then they've got two advisors making outgoing phone calls. We've got a Bayes target. We've got to phone 3,000 businesses before the end of March and talk to them about EU exit, and to make sure that they're satisfied that they're getting the help they need and the signposting they need. So that's a very important target I've got to hit. And the Chamber are confident that that's going to happen. This was all launched on Monday morning. And as I say, I got a phone call late last night from the girls running the incoming calls. They said it was constant all day. A lot of the inquiries were around paperwork inquiries. which we were expecting, which is why we chose the chamber, because they're experts at this. And the other percentage was really just needed signposting to the appropriate link on the .gov website. Yeah, I've kept back some money from the base funding for the call centres. We're going to get specific questions, legal questions, financial questions that the chamber aren't qualified to answer, and we're not qualified to answer. And I acknowledge that. So what I've done is I've kept back a sum of money where we can interact with specialists, accountants, solicitors, etc. And all the other growth hubs in our cluster agreed to do this. I'm speaking to a group of consultant accountants and solicitors on Thursday this week, and I'm going to make a plan moving forward with them that I will pay for 1 hour's service at £100 an hour for a client to go and sit in front of them and get free advice. But the solicitor or accountant has also got to give us 1 free hour. So the client will get 2 hours and we only pay for 1, which I thought was quite a good deal. That's about it really with the EU and the COVID update.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Can I ask, are there any frustrating issues where people are asking for help that we're unable to find somewhere to signpost them to? Is that something worth tabling for our benefit?
We get them all day, every day, Austin. People just asking for money. People are desperate for money. They're asking for more grants. They're saying that the first grants weren't enough. That's what the guys hear all day, every day, is just people want more money. And unfortunately, there's not a lot I can do about that apart from signpost them the best we can, and and pass on the comments as well in our weekly reports to BEIS.
All righty. Are there any questions for Chris? Jason?
Yes. Thanks, Chris. I was just curious, you mentioned about there is an increase in new startups. I was just wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the kinds of startups. Are we talking retail or, I guess, digital-based businesses at home? What are people thinking as a viable business during COVID times for them to be reaching out to start up a new company?
Jason, they're all sorts. They really are all sorts. I've got people making jam, people making scones. I've got tech companies. I've got valeting companies. I've got there's all sorts. There really is all sorts. There's no one sector, which is why we needed a generic startup program that covered all of those. Some of the tech companies, amazing ideas, absolutely amazing, and obviously very different income streams, but we've got to treat them all the same, and offer them all the same. So there isn't one certain sector.
Thanks, Chris. That's really promising.
Thank you.
And any other questions? Andy, welcome.
My apologies for my slightly late arrival, but I caught the end of that. Chris, I was just interested in your comment about treating them all the same. I mean, there is an argument that says that actually, as a region, we have to focus on the organisations that will create the high-value jobs and grow employment in the future, and a startup that's offering valet services with low barriers to entry and is unlikely to grow to be a significant business. I guess there's a question about if we don't have, if there's too much demand and we don't have the resource to cope, should we be offering slightly different types of service and saying to those that have real potential to grow and scale, we will give them more support and more time, and those that are just going to always be relatively small and not particularly high value jobs, we might support them as much as we can, but not at the same level as the firms that are more valuable. I mean, this is about making strategic choices for the region, it seems to me.
Totally get where you're coming from.
Sorry, just on the other side of that, though, surely if we're looking at the issues that's been created by the short-term issues that the country's facing, then there's got to be a balance that does allow the guys who aren't going to be a long-term, because people are out of a job now. So I'm all for long-term strategic, but these things take time as well. So I'm a little bit with Chris in the sense that, you know, having looked at other areas, the startup opportunity of people who've got no money coming in is quite a good way of them actually getting back online. So I think we need to be careful that we have a long-term goal, but as a community, we've got to sort short-term issues out as well.
I agree. I'm sorry.
We can't, my point is that if we have limited capacity to help, are we better helping 10,000 businesses a little tiny bit, or are we better saying actually those 5,000 we will give them 50% of the help that we would have given them, but we'll focus our effort on those 5,000 because we think those 5,000 or those 1,000, whatever it is, that smaller set of businesses are actually the ones that are going to start to create more employment opportunities and more growth for the region. So it's not, I absolutely understand people are struggling. It's fantastic that they are being entrepreneurial and starting things up, but it just seems to me we won't have the resource to help everybody at the same level.
I hope I can answer both of your questions. What we've done is there's four sections of the startup program. Obviously, a tech company that are ready to go, I wouldn't insult them in asking them to attend the number 1 and number 2. Number 1, the first course is going to be, is your business actually a business? Is it viable? Can it go forward? You know, there's no point in them going to that. So I would strongly suggest that they only go to number 3 and number 4, whereas the lady making the scones or the jam might want to go to all 4 of those startup programs. So it's going to be molded as it goes, and we're going to have to see what level of clients we get to it, Andy, as well. You know, if we're getting 90% of tech companies that really don't need the basic help, then we will scrap the basic help and put it into the M program. So hopefully we will be able to help everyone. It is really hard though, trying to get a program that goes right across the business sectors.
Appreciate the challenge, Chris. I think John wants to come in with a few comments, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm also going to say we are doing both, Nitin and Andy. Specifically, we set Chris the challenge to look after this. Well, it will be temporary. This temporary surge in people being made redundant, and a percentage of them thinking, oh, do you know what? I would like a job, but in between getting a job and not having a job, I'll try and start my own business, which is a bit gig economy. So they're not, most of them aren't real businesses that we might recognize. They're really self-employed people. And for that part of the market, which is really large at the moment, unfortunately, that's what we've created Chris's program for. But of course, at the same time, from 1st of February, we'll have the Business Growth Service, and that is focused on 1,000 of our most high potential startups and scale-ups that we will give much higher levels of support and funding to. So it's horses for courses. What Chris has launched is very much a response, unfortunately, to the situation we're in that there's a lot of people getting made redundant, and a percentage of them have a crack at self-employment. But our underlying strategy is indeed Andy's strategy, which is to focus most of our resource onto those that can create biggest impact. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. I'm anxious to move on from this point, but could I just, in closing, ask Chris to please pass on our thanks to all of those people that are on the end of a telephone dealing with difficult situations. I appreciate that's not an easy thing to do, and it can be quite demoralizing. So please pass on our thanks and best wishes and support for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Much appreciated.
If there are no other points, then if we could perhaps move on to agenda item 2.2 and thank Chris. And is Vanessa available, please, to talk us through the budget and performance report? Are you with us, Vanessa?
Yes, sorry, I was being connected and reconnected, and all the video and sound went at the same time. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, board. In the interests of speed, as I'm aware we do have a full meeting, presenting my usual report to the board with the updates on both revenue and capital funding. There is a slight amendment to the report this month to previously, in that we are now reporting the income to the board, so that you are able to track what income is being received, what we forecast, and if it has actually been received, so you're able to monitor the acceptance of funding. Other than that, the only question I have at the end, once if there are any questions, is that I'd like to discuss the presentation of the report. Over to you for questions.
Questions, team? I don't see any.
Well, in the interest of brevity, that was great.
Maybe it's just me, but I couldn't make the income and the expenditure match. There seemed to be £1 million more expenditure than there was income. And
Yes.
The presentation.
Yes, the income and the expenditure won't match exactly, because there is various income that's from gain share within the CPCA funding already. So this is from external income that comes in. But if you'd like me to change how that's presented, we can definitely discuss that one.
Are there any other comments?
I think it'd be helpful to have the comprehensive income, Vanessa, if we can.
Yep.
Including gain share.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that brings me back to the presentation. Obviously, we've run this for a couple of months now after you asked some changes, Andy. The difficulty we have is that the Excel spreadsheets that I use have to be inserted into the Word document, which then creates accessibility problems with people reading the document. Additionally, because they are slightly different sizes, I have to sort of expand and compress, so sometimes the formatting looks a bit strange, which is the reason tables 3 and 4 are different, because that's how I present to the skills committee, and they fit the document much better. So it's really sort of, I don't know if you want to do this offline, if we've got any ideas of what exactly it is that you'd want it to, so that it just presentationally looks more joined up.
If I may, Chair, I think it's just a simple matter of I think the only difference between income and outgoings is the CPCA's contribution. So I think it's just a matter of adding that, and they'll balance.
Yeah. So if we could do that, I personally, I'm more than happy that the tables are slightly different in terms of their fonts and what have you. We can live with that. The information's there. I wouldn't want to add any extra work or burden for the sake of presentation here, unless anyone else is violently disagreeing. It's improved considerably over where we were. Anyone, any view? All right, thank you. Good job then, Vanessa. Thank you.
Nice and simple. Thank you very much.
To deal with the comprehensive income on a separate line, that would fix us and keep us going forward. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Alrighty, I'd like to remind members that the recommendations to the business board are carried by consensus unless there's an objection, in which case we will then have a vote. In the event of a vote, Nick will ask each member whether they wish to vote in favour or against the recommendation, or indeed to abstain. Since this is just a recommendation, unless anyone's shouting anything different to me, we're going to carry this forward as a full recommendation, unanimously. Okie doke. Thank you, Vanessa. Good job.
Thank you.
If we could move on to agenda item 2.3 then, the Local Growth Fund Programme Management Review. And Steve, if you could present the report on that, please.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Austin. Good afternoon, board. So this paper provides the operational updates on LGF to the 1st of December 2020. So the LGF continues well with its contracting and spend. And as of the last board meeting, the whole 146.7 million LGF was fully allocated. The programme expenditure as at the 1st of December was 93,077,000. The current forecast for the planned spend of all individual projects is shown at Appendix 1 to this report. And these profiles are being refreshed again later this week and will be reviewed pretty avidly over the coming 3 months to the end of the programme. The local growth fund delivery continues well, and of the 24 projects in delivery, 2 have come forward with formal change requests. The first one's in this paper, the second's in a later paper in this meeting. The first one is a project change request from Cambridge Medipart Limited, which has been reviewed by the Director of Business Skills and Business Board Section 73 officer. They've requested an extension to their funding period from the end of March to June 21. And this is because the planning authority decided to delay their planning committee from December to January, which clearly is out of the project applicant's hands. So they're requesting just that extra bit of time so they can kick off. It's a big project and they will draw pretty much their LGF allocation in the first 1 or 2 claims. The alternative, of course, to not approving the change is to obviously defund the project and look to reallocate, which is going to be pretty tricky now, given our endpoint for end of programme is coming into view very fast. Obviously, as per advice from BEIS, CPCA can use its funding flexibilities to make sure that it has no impact on this spend by granting this extension of time. So the Business Board is asked to recommend that the Combined Authority approve this request of Cambridge Medipart. As at 1st of December, there were 3 projects approved which were still in contract negotiation. We managed to get a result on one of those, the University of Peterborough Phase 1. The shareholder agreement was signed just before Christmas. So we now only have 2 projects which are still under negotiation to a value of 6.4 million. And both of those should conclude quite swiftly now in this last quarter. There are currently 22 projects subject to evaluation that are completed, and that work will be continuing over the coming months. The return for the Q3 monitoring return to MHCLG and BEIS is currently being prepared by the LGF officers, but was not ready to bring to this meeting due to publication of papers. So we will attach that next quarter return to the LGF review paper in March. Issues log, the LGF team has obviously been maintaining issues log for all, and attached at Appendix 4 is our delivery issue log. Other than the change requests contained today, all seems to be continuing well, and we have no projects which are currently red flagged in that process. Reflecting on the COVID capital grants from the summer, we continue to pay out all those awards, and as of the 1st of December, we'd paid out 3,441,000 to 79 companies have completed their projects entirely and claimed all their grant. As was noted earlier, the Business Board obviously provided further allocation of 2,043,000 to the growth capital grants strand of the Business Growth Service. The Business Growth Service contractor will be commencing mobilisation of the delivery of this revised total of 5 million of capital growth grants as soon as their BGS contract is signed in the coming weeks. The Eastern Agritech Growth Initiative continues to have done well in the last month. It's actually met 5 times, although it says 3 in the paper. They've had 5 meetings and have awarded all of the Agritech spend to grants. Obviously now we're working hard on grant offers and claims before the end of March 21. Monitoring and evaluation. The board is asked to note the monitoring report at Appendix 5. This does include the monitoring end date inserted in this table now, as per requested last meeting, so the business board can see the length of period over which we will be monitoring the outputs and outcomes. In terms of evaluation, the Metro Dynamics report was not finished in time, much to my frustration, to bring to this board. But the draft report will be completed in the next 2 weeks and will be shared to the business board outside of the board meeting. But it will be brought to the March business board as a final copy. Recycle growth funds. Vanessa's obviously provided you with the finances in and out. This table at Appendix 6 shows the much longer return of the loans and investments that Growing Places Fund, the earlier fund, and the Local Growth Fund will be receiving. So it does show over the longer term that both capital and revenue funding does accrue, although we have commitments within the tables that the board have already agreed to. So it shows what the revenue is likely to be over the next 10 years. Getting Building Fund update, the Peterborough University Phase 2 Manufacturing Materials Research and Development Centre has been mobilised since approval back in autumn, and the joint venture property company and corporation is done. The shareholder agreement is obviously coming as a separate paper to this board. The project's commenced detailed design works, preparation for plannings and procurement of the building contractor. The project does include delivery of the supporting car park infrastructure, which is led by Peterborough City Council, and we're currently finalising what the project plan looks like for that car parking infrastructure, and then we'll conclude a grant funding agreement. And that concludes the paper report. Any questions, I guess?
Thank you, Steve. Got an awful lot of moving parts there. Let's take questions in order of there are 3 recommendations here. So with regard to the funding position and the forecast going forward, any questions on that point in particular? Al?
Thanks, Oscar. It's only a quick one. I was just looking at the longer term funding profile. I was just interested whether we had previously or currently have any targets in terms of what our expectations were, so we can kind of measure whether what we're forecasting ahead is in line with anticipated return or not.
Not from a financial point of view, because much of the particularly the local growth funding, it being grant funding, is actually meant to be dispersed without any return in return for outputs and outcomes. So that might be jobs, roads, rail, houses. Obviously, some of the investments will return. So I guess that's a piece of work we could do. We could look at trying to map some of this. There are loans in there, which obviously we know quite conclusively that's going to return. But obviously, investments we've made recently have been equity. So, you know, that can go up and down and fluctuate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Steve. Are you happy with that, Ed?
Yeah, thanks, Austin. I was only just going to follow up with Steve, which is I understand that kind of cyclical nature, and again, it's probably more from a perspective of looking and saying, if we have a really high amount, for example, of recycled capital, is there any conclusions to draw from that, either unsuccessful projects or successful outcomes, or looking at whether there's any measures in terms of the level of churn on that, whether that reflects performance in any way, positive or negative?
Sure.
No, I think that's fair comment. I think there's a real mixture in there. So some of the Growing Places loan funding was allocated under the old LEP regime. So we would have to look carefully at what was agreed and how that was mapped. but yes, some of the returning funds, some of it has been out of our control. So we've had some projects which have, collapsed or gone into administration, which, wouldn't have been predicted.
I think I got a couple of questions, Steve. You mentioned the 3.4 million benefit of the COVID grants going to 79 recipients.
No, sorry, I tried to correct myself there. It's 79 have actually completed their project and drawn all of their grant monies.
Okay. So
The actual total, sorry, was 132.
Perfect. And presumably then there's still a number of companies to draw on that allocation that was out there until March this year, I think.
There is indeed, and we are chasing all of those. Some were late starting, some had equipment held up, some obviously had issues placing the equipment or getting a contractor. Yes, but we gave them all latitude until the end of March.
All right, perfect. And my last question is in terms of finally wringing out the balance of the allocations, anything you're losing sleep over, Steve, at the moment that you're worrying about?
No, thanks to the sterling work of our finance team and the Section 73 officer, we have flexibilities which mean we can manage that endpoint and satisfy BEIS's requirements too.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I think Andy's got his hand up.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So it might be for John, it might be for Steve. I mean, I'm comfortable with the numbers of where they are. I think you've done a great job in terms of managing this overall portfolio of projects. So that's really good. We had a significant chunk of capital to allocate because it sat in the old LEP, then transferred over. But lots of other LEPs around the country are kind of in a position now where they don't have big chunks of capital to allocate. Once this lot's gone, we'll be in the same position. Are there any noises coming from central government about future LEP funding?
I'll take that if I may, Steve. So yes, Steve did a brilliant job of allocating 56 million of the 147 million that the original LEP was allocated, and he's just doing some monitoring, and I believe he will find that the 56 we allocated together as a business board will come up with twice the efficacy and cost half the cost per job that of what was distributed by the old LEP. But to answer your question about what's next, Mood Music is 600 million as a pilot phase for the upcoming Shared Prosperity Fund. I'm doing a paper to board in March to look at future funding and our strategy around it. Our share of this 600 million pilot phase in 2021 for the Shared Prosperity Fund, I reckon is going to be about 5 million. So nothing really to write home about. I think my own back of a fag packet calcs is that from 2022 to 25, that being the period of the CSR settlement, I think we'll get about 30 million per year of the new Shared Prosperity Fund, but that's my calcs, and I've got to validate that. In between time, Andy, you may be aware that government issued a levelling up fund bid set or announced a programme for 4 billion in November. That's imminent this month to come out with a prospectus. My calcs are that there's actually 3.2 billion, which is still a blooming lot of money, 3.2 billion that's actually allocatable, because 800 million of it is pre-allocated to other things, including the Towns Fund that Peterborough is a recipient of. If you were to do the calcs again, you'd come up with a GVA-based allocation, which they won't allocate. It's a competitive programme, but if they were to allocate, you'd come up with about 60 million to come to us. I will be presenting in March again our proposals for what we should put forward to the Levelling Up Fund, and they will add up to about 75 million.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the clarification. One thing's for sure, it's going to change somewhat. And so our ability to second guess that and be positioned for it is all important. And thanks to John for his help with that. I see James's hands raised. Mayor, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'd like to thank John and his team for the work that they've put in over the period of this horrendous lockdown situation. I think that they have made a massive difference to an enormous amount of businesses, and we'd like to do more, of course we would, but what we've been able to do, I think, has been significant across the county, and I think it really puts us in good stead for that shared prosperity fund, because government know that what the business board has done and what the team, John's team, have achieved has been positive for the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough economy, which is exactly what the LEPS was set up to do. So, you know, I think that personal thanks to John and his team, and I really hope that we can continue, as suggested, to invest into Cambridgeshire business.
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly echo those sentiments. Okay, if there are no other comments, then I'm proposing we take the three recommendations A, B, and C together. Sorry, Andy, do you have a...
Yeah, two thoughts on this. I mean, it might be worth John and the team thinking about some form of annual report stroke summary of what the business board has done and invested in to tell the story around the jobs created and so on. I mean, I was on the Oxley website earlier on, and they've got quite a nice annual report which summarises both what they've done as well as their sort of future investment prospectus. And I think there's actually quite a good story to tell here, and having the glossy annual report and getting in the habit of producing that might be quite a good way to do it, not least because we can wave it to ministers when we bump into them, and senior civil servants and so on. And the other thing was a potential declaration of interest. So on the multi-occupancy building that you're about to come to, the developer that's developing it is not, I have no link to, but Cambridge University Health Partners is listed as the lead organisation. I'm on the board of Cambridge University Health Partners.
All right, thanks, Andy. Noted.
If I could respond to the first part of that, Chair.
Please.
Yeah. So thank you for that suggestion, Andy. We hadn't thought about a sort of glossy annual report. You're absolutely right. It's a great idea. We had thought about some components of it, but packaging it in the way you suggest is a brilliant idea. The two components we're on with are Steve's monitoring report, which I hope will show that we not only are we have a higher performance than the previous LEP. I'm hoping it will show us that we've got a higher performance than most other LEPs as well in the efficacy of our investments and some of our programs as well. And the other thing that we are on with is creating seven SOBCs, 3 for this Levelling Up Fund for the spring, but 4 that we intend to use as collateral with government to say to them something like, whatever you were going to give us a shared prosperity fund for business as usual, can you consider giving us this much more for these specific things that are above and beyond business as usual? And those things include the final phase of university. They include the Whittle Lab as part of the OxCam stuff. They include the Rural Growth Initiative that I'll talk about later. And we are actively canvassing both University of Cambridge and the local authorities and some of the bigger firms in the area to actually ask, have you got anything really big and strategic that we could go to government to in the summer and the CSR and say, this is big stuff that's beyond business as usual that you might want to fund us for. So we could pack that all into the annual report that you're suggesting.
All right, let's take that as an action, John. I'm equally very, I'm very conscious that, you know, one of the reasons why government is rethinking the mechanisms for the rollout of the funding is the performance of some of the LEPs in the UK has not been great, and we don't want to be tarred with that brush, frankly. We could set ourselves out as the example for others to follow in some areas for sure. Thank you, Andy. Brilliant, brilliant idea.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on then, if we may, if there are no other comments. I'll take the 3 recommendations in the rounds. Has anyone any objections to carrying those 3 recommendations forward? I don't see anyone, so we'll consider that carried unanimously. Thank you, Steve, for all your hard work. A lot of things going on there. Appreciate it. Let's move on now to agenda item 2.4, the University of Peterborough incorporation of the Property Code 2, please. I understand Mahmood's presenting the report in this respect.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board. As this is my first appearance, if you could allow me to introduce myself very briefly. I'm Mahmood Farugi, the new SRO Higher Education, reporting to John Hill. Started with the Combined Authority only last month and blessed with a very steep learning curve. And my apologies in advance if I have to revert back to John to help me with some of the questions on background details. And my main remit is to act as the program director to deliver the new University of Peterborough and the associated R&D Centre. And I'm very pleased to meet you all. I would like to start by confirming that the board is invited to consider 2 papers. The first paper describes our most up-to-date position on the second phase of the University of Peterborough and asking approval for 3 clear recommendations. The first one being about a delegated authority, that is to develop the required legal documentation. And more specifically, that the business board recommend to Combined Authority that delegation is granted to officers to develop those legal documentation for the Peterborough R&D Property Company Limited. The second recommendation is about the business plan and approval of it. And the third is about procurement of a commercial operator to manage the Research and Development Centre. The second paper is Associated Business Plan as an appendix to the report. It provides some details in terms of the deliverables, governance, procurement strategy, the economical appraisals and intended operational plan, and a bit more. So with that in mind, please let me just give you a very brief update on the University Phase 2. The Phase 2 of the University of Peterborough is a development of a research and development centre which would link academia and industry. There are 2 components to that. These 2 components is to create a research that could contribute to technology which allow for the reduced carbon emission for the innovative businesses. And the second component is to provide the students of the university with access to tomorrow's manufacturing technologies. This center will also be a joint venture company owned by CPCA and Photocentric, a profitable, rapidly growing technology company, as you know. The intention is to achieve a significant sector cluster growth based on the technological innovation that will perform the knowledge intensity of the products, services, and jobs. As far as funding is concerned, an allocation of 14.6 million has been granted from MHCLG. That was in August 2020. And the phase 2 of the University of Peterborough research and development is now well underway in terms of the design and development. How are we going to deliver it? Well, to make the delivery of the investment a reality, an application is currently under development with Photocentric as the lead organization with partnership with CPCA to develop a special purpose vehicle with equity investment coming from both GBF and the Photocentric. The special vehicle is formation of the Peterborough R&D property company, so-called PropCo 2, which was officially incorporated on the 18th of November 2020. As I touched upon it earlier, the report outlines two key approaches. The first one being that the Director of Business and Skills, in consultation with the lead member of economic growth, the Section 73 officer and monitoring officer, to develop the necessary legal documentation for the PropCo 2. And the second key proposal is about PropCo 2 company entering into a contract with the commercial operator who wins the tender through a competitive process. This management company will manage the day-to-day running of the building under a concession contract, which includes also a number of prerequisite clauses that offer subsidized rental arrangement for an initial period in order to provide some incentive. The report outlines the procurement route and the appropriate contract in more details for you to consider. I would now pause and hand back to you, Mr. Chair, and welcome any questions and further clarification that may be required.
Thank you, Mahmood, and welcome from the Business Board. Great to have you on board.
Thank you.
Questions, please. Okay. All very quiet. Andy.
So I'm very supportive of this generally. My one question about it was the Photocentric funding, putting 3 million in, getting 18% stake in PropCo 2, which is proportionate to the amount that Combined Authority is putting, very sensible. But then in the anchor tenant piece, Photocentric under 2.16, Photocentric co-investment in the new SPV, also acts as the anchor tenant, occupying one of the three floors of the building, nominally 39% under a sublease from the commercial operator. Presumably that sublease is on commercial terms because they own 18% of the building, but they're getting to occupy, or sorry, they own 18% of PropCo 2, but they're getting to occupy 39% of the building. So I just wanted to confirm that it was commercial terms that they were paying for their lease.
I can answer that with a very quick answer. Yes, absolutely, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? John, you've got your hand up. Is that a...
that's a legacy hand, as they say.
Okay, good stuff. So certainly a very exciting development and quite innovative in its thinking and its construction. I can see there's a lot of thought gone into all the moving parts to get this put into a position where we could move forward. Thank you for that, John. If there are no other questions, then there are the three recommendations here, and I note that there have been some minor formatting amendments that have been made to the recommendations that were published in this paper, and that these recommendations were published online and circulated to board members on the 5th of January. For clarity, I shall now read out the recommendations that we are being asked to consider. I think we've covered the sentiment of this, but for good governance then, recommendation A is recommend that the Combined Authority Board delegates authority to the Director of Business and Skills in consultation with the lead member for economic growth, the Section 73 officer and the monitoring officer to develop the necessary legal documentation for the Peterborough R&D Property Company. Number 2, item B, recommend the Combined Authority approves the business plan for Peterborough R&D Property Company. And C, recommend the Combined Authority Board consents to Peterborough and R&D Property Company Limited entering into the contract with the commercial operator, which is successful in the procurement exercise. Can I ask if there are any objections to any of those three recommendations? I don't see any, in which case we'll carry that unanimously. Thank you all for that and your inputs. Thank you, Mahmood.
Thank you.
If we could move on to agenda item 2.5, please, staying with the University of Peterborough. Manufacturing Materials Research and Development Centre project change request. Steve.
Yes, hi again. It follows on quite closely from the previous paper. So this paper formally reports and seeks approval for the request for Photocentric to actually, as the joint venture partner, to invest an additional 1.13 million to make their investment equal 3 million. So if accepted, the total of 3 million will bring the total equity within the company, sorry, to 16.47 million. And Photocentric's share of that company would be 18.2%, which compares to the existing already approved project of 15.34 million of equity investment, of which Photocentric will own 12.2. So the change request would increase the total project budget from 18.37 million to 19.5 million. This increased investment would allow for the overall size of the new centre to be enlarged by an increased footprint and expansion of all 3 floors, resulting in an increased lettable area of 16%, from 1,057 metres squared to 1,924 metres squared. The building spec is not only increased in size, but the revised building plan has been value engineered to not sacrifice quality, meaning the actual build spend decreases from 4,105 per metre construction costs to 3,887 per metre. As was set out in the paper at this meeting earlier regarding the business plan, subject to state aid analysis, the intention is that Photocentric will forego their rights to dividends or other financial proceeds from renting the building and are instead being granted space in the building at a peppercorn rent equal to the percentage of their shareholding. But by increasing their shareholding from 12 to 18, they will obviously increase the space available to them in the eventual building at a peppercorn rate. But because their intention is to occupy the whole top floor, the remainder of the space will be leased at market rates, as was confirmed. The increased building scope enabled by the increased investment means that the increasing lettable space for market rent increases by 119 metres squared. Under the revised agreement, Photocentric would secure the 18%, 349 metres squared, and then the further space they require of 414 metres squared, charged at commercial rate. The table in 2.10 shows a comparison between the costs and benefits of the investment between the 2 different scenarios. And it shows that the combined authority is not disadvantaged as a result of the increased investment. Project delivery remains on target for occupation September 2022 and getting buildings fund being spent by end of March 2022. As the CPCA would be entitled to all the profits from the company's asset because of Photocentric not taking a dividend, the proposed change is likely to have a positive financial impact on CPCA's position for no additional public funding, and obviously improving the outcomes in terms of total lettable space for SMEs and zero carbon startups. And the combined authority would remain the majority shareholder, and the reduced percentage of the combined authority shareholding would be company would still equate to an increased overall lettable area in the actual project. So the business board is asked to recommend that the combined authority board recommend approval of the project change request.
Thank you, Steve. I mean, this is almost a prerequisite to the previous item that's been approved, but nevertheless, I'm just intrigued. I mean, it seems like a win-win all round. What drove this? Was this Photocentric's desire to increase their floor space?
think John wants to answer this one.
Yeah, I did. I just didn't want anyone to be confused. That wasn't me just now. It's probably something that perhaps we could handle offline in terms of the different motivations. But the partner is incredibly enthusiastic about the concept of the university and the concept of research on the university site, and is very keen to invest in not just his business but in Peterborough as a whole.
Andy, thank you, John.
So, as I said, I'm supportive of it. I think the question about what. Well, I hope this all works out fantastically. There are two bits that are worth playing. The first is around how long the peppercorn rent arrangement lasts. Is it in perpetuity or 99 years, or what's the model there? And then the second one is if something awful happens to the business and they go, oh no, we have to consolidate, or they've got US presence, they decide to go and locate stuff in the US and move out of Peterborough. What happens to the asset at that point?
I'll answer that one again. So yeah, the peppercorn rent is in effect in perpetuity for their 18%. They put £3 million in, and one must have got, as I'm sure you appreciate, Andy, their £3 million invests into a property company, not the building. So they don't own the building. They own 18% of the property company, and the property company owns a building. Hence, to realise their pseudo ownership of their 18% of the building, the property company gives them a peppercorn rent for that 18%. So it's entirely a recognition. However, what they don't get is to enjoy the dividends from the income of the rental of the remainder of the building, because that would break state aid rules. They can have their benefit as either the building space or participating in PropCo and getting the rent. They can't have both. So yes, it is in perpetuity, and it is all in line with state aid. Yes, we have, of course, envisaged and planned for, which we've planned for both Photocentric to do amazingly well and potentially offer to buy us out. And we've also planned for Photocentric to not do well at all, disappear, go to another country, or go insolvent. In those conditions, either the CPCA would take those shares, or we would sell them on the open market, or of course get another similar partner in who was also interested in owning the floor of the building. But certainly that asset, that 18% of the company, becomes possibly the concern of an administrator, and they will want to liquidate it. And we've set in we will set in the shareholders agreement various provisions that we can safely buy that or get someone in to sell it in a compatible way. And we'll probably put some provisions in the shareholders agreement as to what you can or what the administrator may or may not do with that asset.
Thank you.
Very sensible. Any other questions here?
Austin, can I ask a question?
Sure.
John, if Photocentric decided to sell their share of PropCo to another firm, not suggesting they go insolvent or anything like that, but just chose to, would we have any say in that, or at the mercy of whoever they choose to sell to?
We've already so that the method we've chosen to have a say, we've already done it. So PropCo 2, the one for this building, has to buy the land of PropCo 1 because this building is sitting within the first building's land. We use covenants in the land transfer to actually place on PropCo, which then places it on Photocentric, that basically says the building as a whole, whether it's Photocentric's bit or not, the building as a whole can only be used for research, development, incubation and education purposes. And within the shareholders agreement, we will also go a bit further on that in terms of having rights over who buys their shares if they should choose to try and sell their shares. But there's already covenants that on the building that say it can only be used for the purpose for which we gave the grant for, to create a research centre.
Thank you, John. We could always ask for a right of first refusal, of course, as part of that.
Indeed, that is exactly what we'll do.
Are you happy with that, Rebecca?
Yes, thank you.
If there are no other questions, I don't see any other hands raised.
Jason's there.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, this is a real quick one. Is there a possibility for other partners similar to Photocentric to come and acquire shares, or is this a one-off?
Nice one, Jason. That has not currently been envisaged. It's not currently been envisaged. So perhaps we'll take that one offline and think about that and talk to the other partner.
Okay, and presumably there's nothing in the clause of the arrangement that would prevent other partners if it were envisioned in the future coming on board. It's not like Photocentric has an exclusive.
Actually, come to think of it, and correcting myself, it has been envisaged because, of course, when I put the proposal to you all, I said, okay, you know, we're going to put our money in, but there are two things that could happen. Either Photocentric buy us out because they do so wonderfully well, or in fact, we sell our shares to someone else because we would choose to recycle our get building funding into new projects. So in fact, I correct myself, we have envisaged other shareholders because we actually do intend selling our shares at some point in order to recycle the money once the building is entirely self-sustaining commercially and our money is not needed.
Okay. Thanks, John. It'd be good to know if there's any kind of veto rights or non-competitive kind of clauses in the agreement that you have with Photocentric as well, because I can imagine there's a handful of companies that would be interested in coming in, and we wouldn't want to get in a situation where they have some kind of block. I'm assuming that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take it as an action in these minutes to work with you on that shareholder agreement.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, John. I don't see any other hands raised. Please shout. In which case, there are two recommendations here. We'll take them both together. Has anyone any objections to carrying these recommendations forward? That's my dogs who are in violent agreement. Sorry. All right, we'll consider that carried then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. I think we're staying with you, Steve, actually, for the LGF project change request for the March Adult Education Centre. If you could pick that up and I'll go on mute and sort the dog.
Unfortunately, it may set our dog off as well, but anyway. So this paper presents the Local Growth Fund project change request from Cambridgeshire Skills in respect of the March Adult Education Project. This change request is in respect of the centre that they're building in March Town in Fenland. The change request has been reviewed by the Director of Business Skills and Business Board Section 73 officer. The project is refurbishment of buildings and expansion of their space to deliver adult skills. And basically their extension, they're seeking an extension of 1 month from the end of March to the end of April. And this is due to delays in their procurement and a bit of ill health prior to that on their main contract lead. And this is all due to COVID impact in the main. So whilst this request would extend the project spend beyond March, the alternatives obviously again would be to defund the project and then set about trying to find other ways to spend the funding, probably with little chance to reallocate it in time. So it's probably not, it wouldn't be a proportionate action to defund. And we can use our confirmed position with Cities and Local Growth Unit in their payment letter dated 3rd of June, that we can use our funding flexibilities and there'd be no wider impact on the LGF programme. So the Business Board is asked to recommend the Combined Authority approve the project change request.
Thank you, Steve. Just by way of an apology to board members, this late entry was accepted at my request, published on the 8th of January. The request was submitted after the Business Board agenda was published on the 22nd December 2020, and I've therefore consented to the inclusion of its late reports as an agenda item for the meeting. Anxious just not to have this sat around for another month or so. I think it's very straightforward, unless anyone has any questions, please. All right, thank you, Steve. I don't see any questions. Therefore, there's one recommendation here to carry this forward. If anyone has any objections, please shout now. Okay, in which case we will consider that accepted unanimously. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for bringing it to our attention so promptly so we could deal with it. Okay, moving on then to agenda item 3.1, the LEP partnering strategies. John, I believe you're going to present this section for us.
Chair, thank you very much. So, board members, this is very much a proposal to you for partnering across the LEP network. We have current partnering activity and we've got ideas for further partnerships, but we're very open to ideas from board members and to develop those ideas for further partnering. So please do consider this at the beginning of a partnering strategy, not in any way a fait accompli. However, the purpose of the paper today is to provide a summary of the collaboration ongoing with various LEPs over three periods, short term, medium term and long term. Over the short term, in the next 3 months, in which the focus will be on collaboration to share best practice with and between the OxCam LEPs on local economic recovery planning. All of them, including us, of course, have produced recovery strategies during November and December, and we'll work to develop those over the next period to March and possibly beyond. Who knows? That is our first area of collaboration. The medium-term area of collaboration over the next 12 months. Is again with the OxCam LEPs, where we'll demonstrate the added value that the ARC provides to the UK in strengthening the national recovery through the ARC's innovation assets, and particularly the net zero based recovery that grows back greener. We'll be collaborating in joint large scale and ambitious projects across the ARC to generate benefits for local CPCA partners and allocation of resources from the comprehensive spending review that we think we wouldn't have got with a local only approach. So that's all about the OxCam innovation initiatives, which I'll flesh out a little bit in a second. And then finally, the third longer term area of partnering is a continuation of the previous, which is implementing any of those big innovation activities we have with OxCam LEPs. Is number one. Number two is to broaden geographically the current Eastern Agritech a growth initiative that already partners with NARLEP, the New Anglia LEP, but would potentially also embrace the wider rural area that we're in and work also with Greater Lincolnshire LEP and South East Midlands LEP as well. And then the third area of longer term partnering is within the LEP network more generally for peer-to-peer best practice sharing and reviews to improve our performance and the efficacy of what we do. So just as a reminder, on the Oxcam investment side, the investment prospectus had 5 big initiatives that we're going to look to be part of. A life science innovation network to build on the world leading capability of the clusters in Oxford and Cambridge, a sustainable aviation network, a UK space gateway, a future mobility network to strengthen the ARC's development of and rollout of connected autonomous vehicles. And the 5th one is a zero carbon energy network around energy systems. Over the next, over the summer actually, we will be working with local partners that include TWI and Photocentric that you heard about a minute ago on the future mobility work around net zero. And we're looking to produce a levelling up programme or bid that would see a £25 million R&D programme for net zero technology development. In the case of Life Science Innovation Network, we will of course be working with the University of Cambridge, but also life science businesses in the cluster around Cambridge as well. And then finally, on the Sustainable Aviation Network, we'll be working to do our part in embedding the new Whittle Laboratory into the work that the Oxcam does. That brings us to the idea of the rural economy and to expand the work there across 2 more LEPs, those being SEMLEP and Greater Lincolnshire LEP. And that's the geographic expansion of the concept, but we'll also be presenting papers to you over the course of spring and summer to look at diversifying what we currently have as an agri-tech growth initiative into more of a broader rural growth initiative that may go beyond, of course, technological growth and diversification of the rural economy, but also look at professional services diversification, health and well-being services diversification, and leisure and events diversification, and hospitality. So looking at a broader set of business model and business types to diversify the rural economy and keep people employed in the rural economy. And that brings me to the final area, which is that peer-to-peer review across the LEP network. And we've been paired with the West of England LEP, mainly because they are the other LEP that's embedded in a combined authority. So they're the one that's most like us. And over the course of the spring, Steve and I and Dom will be engaging with them to do quite a deep dive in comparing what we deliver locally and what they deliver locally, and what we can learn from each other, and what mistakes we've both made and how we can correct them. So that's the strategy, and you're being asked to note the current collaboration and recommend to the Combined Authority Board that Oxcam level, that rural growth initiative partnering, and the LEP network peer-to-peer partnering, and also to potentially suggest other forms of partnering across the LEP network, which we're very interested to get your views and feedback. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you, John. I mean, this whole area in principle is something I'm very supportive of. I'm keen to hear from, we all have a vested interest as a board here in going in this direction. I'm keen to hear from people what their thoughts are, good, bad, indifferent. What, you know, do people have concerns that they'd like to get on the table so that we can be cognizant of those and make sure that as we progress, we weave our way through, or are we violently opposed to this level of collaboration to move forward? Let's quickly go around the interested parties. I think Tina was first to raise a hand.
Yeah, so I've said before, it's a bit of a shame that we don't have some emphasis on agri-tech in the Oxcam ARC, especially because of the university, the Peterborough University, you know, potential involvement in mechanics there. And then that led me to thinking perhaps we ought to be in writing these things, aligning them more clearly with the LIS. You know, this is how this fits into there. So that was one thing. And I know these things have been going on for a long time, but I do think there's if agri-tech is going to be part of our strategy, and especially our own sort of internal levelling up, we need to make sure that it's taking advantage of these opportunities. And then collaboration with the other LEPs in agri-tech and broadening that, well, that's good and that's welcome. It does, you know, when this started, it was only Cambridgeshire, I think, and broadening it as it has already been broadened, it does lead you to some issues in the whole decision-making process that you need to be aware of. And if you include more LEPs, then you've got more, if you like, competition. And so you've got to weigh up the benefits of collaboration versus the benefits of competition in terms of where people choose to locate as a result. And one of the things about that Eastern Agri-Tech Growth Initiative, and I don't have the data, but I'd be prepared to bet that its existence has helped a few small companies to locate here and to continue to be located here. And also, I will send you an email, but in the section on that, there's some errors. So Agri-Tech E isn't a research organisation. And it's a couple of, just in those 2 paragraphs, it'd probably be easier if I just wrote them down and sent them on to you.
Appreciate that, Tina. Thank you. Faye, I think you were next.
Thank you. John, thank you for the paper. I think it's a really good oversight of what is taking place. I think central government's been very clear that they expect us to collaborate, all the LEPs to collaborate. So I think it's something that we need to do, but I agree with Tina, it needs to be balanced. I do have, it's more of a mechanical query, I think. What I don't quite understand yet is who does the collaboration? Is it officer to officer? Is it board member? You know, what do you actually, I don't understand what we can actually do as part of the overall network. So for example, within the LEP network, I know that there is a women of the LEP network group, for example. Is that something that the 4 females that are now on this board should be engaging with? So I think that there might be some easy wins there that then help the overall collaboration. But I think my point is are we being led by you, and how much do you want us to input into the future collaboration plans?
All right. Thank you, Faye. Some very valid points. Before we come back to response to that, James has got his hand up. Can we just hear what James's thoughts are, and maybe John can respond to that comprehensively?
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in this ARC discussion group, ARC discussion forums, and East West Rail, and all the things around it now for what seems like a very, very long while. The problem with it is, as far as I can see, you've got, if you include all the councils along, the district councils, county councils, etc., you've got a massive amount of people with a massive differing views. You know, the views of people, somebody who is in charge of Buckingham might be completely different, and the needs of Buckingham completely different the needs of Cambridgeshire, and clearly that is shown by the government investment really at the moment is on the eastern side of the Arc. It is at Cambridge End, so it is the A428, which is starting this year, and we know how important that will be to the business in Cambridgeshire. And of course, East West Rail, the main bit is Bedford to Cambridge. Well, that's not going to smoothly go through, as always with South Cambridge. There's everything that something is proposed, there's always a million people who don't want it, and have got very good arguments as to why. So it's not easy. However, what I would say, and this is where I think the LEPs are very important. I think I'm right in saying across the whole ARC area there are only 4 LEPs. So there are only 4 LEP chairmen, and that's where business can get a real foot in the door here and a real focus on what's necessary. I would like to see the 4 LEP chairmen meeting regularly and putting forward business growth strategy through the 4 of them, because coming to agreement with 4 people is a lot easier than coming to agreement with 67 or however many there is. And of course, the other thing that the LEP chairmen have is they don't have this nonsense of politics involved. So even if, and we know this is the case, even if somebody comes up with a good idea, and I speak as a politician, if it's not an idea by the same party, then it's not necessarily supported by everybody else. And you don't have that problem, Austin, of course. So you have the clarity of thought of business, the clarity of vision of business, and there aren't many of you. So I think it's something that could see this ARC area leap forwards if there was more LEP collaboration. I might be completely wrong, maybe you're already doing it, but I don't think so. And the other thing I just want to add in there, and I can see Andy's got his hand up, is I know that universities are working together, or supposedly are, across the LEP area, but I don't know to what purpose. I don't know if they're working to a business purpose or to anything else. It's just a bit of a mystery to me, and I'd like, perhaps Andy can give me a little more insight. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Some very wise words there. I can't see Andy on the screen at the moment, but I'm sure Andy will have a very interesting view as our key link into the ARC so far. What would you like to share with us, Andy? What are your thoughts?
Apologies, I'm not sure what's happening to video, and I've just got kicked off the call and then reappeared. But so I may have missed some bits that were said. But the ARC Universities group, there are 9 universities across the ARC. There was a request effectively by central government at one stage. I was at an early meeting with the vice chancellors of those universities and the PVC for Research at Oxford, a guy called Patrick Grant, and me, to talk about the universities collaborating across the ARC, and we've been doing that. I think the universities, we've taken the view, so there's a steering committee of the universities, we're looking at collaborative projects, but we've taken the view that actually the university should be supporting the LEPs, and I completely agree with you, James. I think the LEPs play a really crucial role in the ARC here. And the university should be in support of that. So there's quite good collaboration between those 2 groups. The chairs and chief execs of the LEPs have been meeting, particularly on the back of the West Midlands bid. So West Midlands put a bid in for 3.2 billion to support economic development in West Midlands. Colleagues will be aware that provoked quite a lot of discussion at the ARC leaders group with all the political leaders and the LEPs, and then there was quite a lot of work behind the scenes to produce the Oxford Cambridge prospectus, which I guess everybody's seen, but if not, we should circulate to people. And that Oxford Cambridge prospectus, which was sort of endorsed by the LEPs, was really the thing that John was alluding to with the 5 different topic areas. And what we were trying to do in the prospectus was position the ARC not as a million houses and a railway and an expressway, but actually it's all about economic development and innovation, etc. So I think there's I think the LEPs are trying to get there, trying to be more joined up and paint a more coherent view to central government on this. There's definitely more that could be done there. John's been involved in these conversations as well. My sense is that the LEPs are kind of collaborating and competing simultaneously in this process. So the steer from central government is that we will as a region, the ARC, as a sort of economic region, the ARC is something they recognise, and they could see that in the same way that they see the Northern Powerhouse, and so that's really the opportunity, I think, for us. What we have to make sure is the Cambridge and Peterborough voice is strong in those conversations, so that when we get things like the prospectus, and when government then comes back and goes, oh, that's interesting, we'd like more detail, and that's why the outline business cases John's been talking about so important, those things get developed, and we make sure that this LEP has a strong voice and presence in all of those conversations. So I think progress has been made, but it would be really good, I think, for us to have a workshop stroke strategy session at some stage about what we would like to both get out of the ARC as a region and what we can contribute to it. And we've not had that conversation as a LEP board particularly.
No, quite. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I'm very grateful for Andy's support in being the champion for the ARC for us in the main. John, could you try and respond to the myriad of different angles there? I think very valid, actually, please. Sorry, Amir would like to come in.
Sorry, Chair. Just one more thing. I have a slightly cynical view. So you've got the Northern Powerhouse, you've got the Midland Engine, and we've got the ARC. And it seems that other LEPs do the marketing first, and then they worry about how to divvy out the money. It's more important almost to get in front of government with your logo, be it the ARC, be it the Midland Engine, or the Northern Powerhouse, and then worry about the rest later. And so that's really my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like to come back on some of those points?
Yeah. So I'll do Amir first because it's freshest in my mind. And so the answer to Amir's point there is it's about doing a bit of promo and getting your logo in front. That's exactly what that ARC prospectus was about. In many ways, as Andy said, it was a response to the West Midlands getting their 3.2 in, and ours adds up to more than 3.2, of course. So it's a bigger one. But yeah, we've done that. Also, as Andy said, what's really important now is to follow that up with the specifics of decent business cases that go beyond a glossy brochure that makes big claims. And actually says, and here are some very specific projects with a price tag, with a benefit cost ratio that will generate very specific benefits. And that's what we're working on over the spring and summer. So we've done the promo and the positioning. We've attracted the attention of government. Now we've got to put the ball in the back of the net by producing some good SOBCs. Strategic outline business cases. To answer Faye's original question, which seems an hour ago, what we're really looking for from board members in terms of how do you help us take forward collaboration is ideas on what that collaboration might be that might extend the ideas I've put forward. As Tina said, ideas that are based on the strategy that we've already got, that you've seen in the local economic recovery strategy, that we've already got in our current local industrial strategy. So that's the first part. I think the second part is for anyone who's willing to actually partner with myself in actually bringing that collaboration to fruition by actually working at a chief officer and board level between the different LEPs to actually take those ideas of collaboration into them and get them to sign up to them. Tina's already said that, for instance, Agritech isn't particularly well accommodated or perceived or emphasised or focused on, as an example, issue across Oxcam. What can we do about that, particularly if we want to get SEMLEP involved in an Agritech initiative? As Andy said, the chairs and the chief execs together as a pair, in this case, it's the chair represented by Andy, the deputy chair, but we meet our fellow Oxcam ARC chairs and chief execs quite often, at least once a month, and over November and December, it was more like once every couple of weeks. So we do meet, but there is definitely space for other members of the business board, should they be willing to get involved with us and take our messages into other LEP boards around partnership and collaboration. So that's how I think we could work together.
Thank you for that, John. Are there other questions or thoughts anyone would like to share? Alrighty, Andy.
Yeah, the only other thing to say, and I think, Tina, your point about agri-tech is right and interesting, but the but is that the way that we've tried to position the ARC prospectus, we talked quite a lot about this and said actually we should we within our specific regions we should have initiatives that are absolutely right for the region, and we should include in the ARC prospectus only those things that we can do better by joining up across the ARC rather than doing them regionally. And so I guess my question, and I just don't know the other regions well enough, my question about agri-tech is clearly a strength of this particular region. Is it really a strength of the ARC, or would we be better off saying agri-tech is absolutely a priority for this region and there are other things? So the reason life sciences is in the ARC one is actually when you look at what's going on in Oxford around diagnostics, and you look at the our end of the ARC as well, there's some real strengths around merger of digital, AI, machine learning and life sciences, and joining up across the length of the ARC, we could be much more powerful than we would be if we just did stuff within our region. Now, there will be some areas where we go actually from a competitive advantage perspective, we're better doing it in the region because by doing that and by focusing the capability in the region, because we've got the fantastic land, etc. That's the right focus for that particular topic. And so I'm not sure on agri-tech whether it's better saying that's really a regional priority or whether it does match as an ARC priority.
Thanks. Thank you, Andy. Faye, is your hand up from previously, or?
It went up and it went down.
Okay, lovely.
Again, Tina, it might not be Oxcam ARC for agri, it might be more links. You know, it might be more you want to push it up to a different level. My point when I raised my hand was the broken record. It goes back to the strategies. So the work that we're doing now or Tina's doing on the agri-tech strategy and the framework Andy's put together. I think if we can crystallize on what those three things are that we're going to do, then it makes our conversation much easier to prioritize what is Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, what is Oxcam, what is wherever else, and then I think we can really go and have those conversations. But I do still think
Thank you, Faye. Points very well made. I don't see any other hands raised, I don't think. No. I mean, in my take on trying to capture all of that, John, I think the sentiment is going to be that we'll come to this in a minute with the recommendation that it makes sense to move forward with this with caution, and there's probably some sense in us going offline to wrestle with a workshop to deal with some of the detail around you know, what projects make sense from an ARC perspective seen through that lens, and how do we hang on the shirt tails of some of the bigger critical mass projects which I think government are more likely to support. What projects might want to be dealt with through collaboration in slightly different geographical territories, vis-a-vis the agri-tech's an obvious one. There'd be some value, I think, in us spending a bit of time just kicking that around and helping to shape that, so we can help inform and develop the priorities for the discussions, and agree from a comms point of view where other members of the board might have a very powerful contribution to make to helping to drive some of those forward. I think there'll be some real value in that. So capturing that thought as a possible action, if we move forward with this recommendation, let's come back to the recommendation then here, as John set out. Do I hear anyone that's violently disagreeing with this, that wouldn't want us to at least push forward with it? If so, shout now. In which case, let's carry this forward and let's give John and Andy and those people who are directly engaged with these folks the mandate to try and get our place at the table well and truly established, and in a very positive and supportive sense. And then we'll work through the detail of the mechanics of how do we get the best out of it from a somewhat perhaps more selfish point of view, viewed through the lens of what's important to us on our patch and with our particular interests in various sectors. Alrighty, John, thank you very much for that. Good job. Good debate. Thank you, everyone. If we could move on then to item 3.2, which is the business market engagement update. I believe Ed is going to give us an update on this, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The engagement update that you've got is made up of 3 documents. Appendix 1 is a summary of the campaign performance up until December. Appendix 2 outlines our planned activity for the coming months, and Appendix 3 recaps our PR activity and where we've been able to highlight some of those successes. Just touching on a couple of points you've discussed throughout the meeting, in Appendix 2, it references a campaign to highlight the impact of the LGF money across the region. And I just wanted to give you a bit more detail on that. It's currently in development. We've got an interactive digital map, which will not only map out where investments have been made, but also highlight some of those forecasts. And it's something that Emily Martin and I are keen to experiment on, those sort of innovative ways to report and showcase progress through digital and print methods. So the next reports will include an update on progress of that map, and I look forward to sharing that with you. Couple of bits that weren't included in the report because of timings, but following the changes to the tier system and the introduction of national restrictions over the Christmas period, we've been signposting to national and local support schemes, working with the Economic Recovery Subgroup to signpost and raise awareness of those district council schemes, so the local restrictions grant and the additional restrictions grant, and have been helping to try and signpost those people who might have missed out on capital grant funding or micro capital grant funding to those schemes specifically, to make sure that everyone is aware of those. And then the final point to make you aware of is that on Monday, we're launching the joint marketing campaign with the Chamber for the EU Transition Service. And there's 2 aspects to that. One is a high volume helpline service for general inquiries, and then the other is a targeted service to engage with those businesses that we know are importers and exporters within the region and are likely to be impacted. Happy to take any questions on the report, Chair or members.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for Ed?
Yes, please. Although it's not actually a question, it's more of a plea. There is a section on our website which is called Business Board News. And the last entry was from March 2020. And it's not being kept up to date. I presume all the news press releases you're talking about are going under the main combined authority news pages. And it feels like we should either get rid of that other page or apportion them appropriately, because if you're looking for Business Board News, it doesn't look like there is any currently.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We've got an issue with the tagging system currently. So we've got a new combined authority website under development with a much more improved tagging system that will work across all the portfolios and all the projects. And we're hopeful that that's on course to launch certainly sometime in February. But in the meantime, yes, all those press releases are going onto the main news feed because that's all we can do at the moment.
All right. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Rebecca. Well spotted. Thank you. Faye.
Hello. I think I have 4 comments. Let's see. So one question on the Metro Dynamics dashboard. What are those numbers looking like in terms of interaction? Are people actually using it? Is it what we expected? It's such a great resource. It'd just be good to know that it is actually being utilised. A question, and it might link back to Rebecca's here. There's, you know, we talk about on the budget, there's an underspend on marketing for a whole variety of reasons. Actually, maybe that's, you know, can we do more things on the business board, you know, the projects, the outcomes. I'm really pleased to see, and I know Rebecca will be too, the promotions of the local growth fund. I think that that's really positive, so thank you for that. I'd be very interested to see what this high impact launch program is on the business growth service. We as a business board have obviously awful lot of money into that service. Actions unstable, so me if I start going funny. I think it's really important that launch is really strong and spread widely. And going back to the PR, I looked down that list of all those press releases, and this is my job. And honestly, I have to say there was one of them that I remember seeing, and the rest of them I didn't. So it comes back to how are we cascading those messages and making sure that the statistics are going up. There's kind of a range of different comments and questions there.
No, thank you, Faye. And I think the digital techniques that we're trialing for the first time with the LGF map, which not only show where it is, but the outcomes as well, is something that we've got a plan to use some of that underspend to roll out across other projects within Business and Skills on the new website once we've got the digital capability to do it. So that's important to enabling us to take that to the next level, really, and that is certainly close. We'll have some conversations to have around that and how that looks with you. On the Metro Dynamics dashboard, I can certainly do you a report from the data. We've got dedicated landing pages for our stakeholder version of the page, which didn't have a data capture form on it, and a wider public one which had a data capture form on it. So I can certainly collate those into a report and share with members so you can see how that dashboard's being engaged with. But the headline figures on it are quite positive. We've had a good number of sign-ups to it. It was somewhere around 85 sign-ups within the first couple of weeks. So I will check that and circulate the details to members.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I mean, I do sense a little bit of frustration. We've got two members of the board who are experts in this field, in Faye and Rebecca. Please connect with them, Ed, on some of these things and kick a few ideas around. I'm sure that we would all benefit from slightly different perspectives, and we have a vested interest from a business board in perpetuating our own brand and marketing, so to speak. But there are a lot of other things where I think we could possibly help as well. We do have a real vested interest in the growth business going forward. So perhaps just walking through the marketing plan for that with Faye and Rebecca, and just capture their thoughts on that. Couldn't do any harm at all, certainly. If you could help us with that, I think that would be beneficial all around. Great job on the heat maps for the LGF. That will go down a storm with the councillors in particular. That's something they've been asking for on a couple of occasions previously at the Combined Authority Board meetings to better understand that. So certainly welcome that. Thank you. Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, apologies, I missed Faye's points about the grey service in my responses there. We've started to have those discussions with the contractor and the providers, and we've also started to do some briefing sessions with local authority partners and have some planned for member organisations as well to have a look at those core messages for that service and look at the key messages for those individual service lines as well. But yes, happy to share that.
I appreciate that, and for Faye and Rebecca's benefit as well, then, one of the delicate things about the growth business is that the contractor is partly responsible for perpetuating its own success. So if we take over the marketing of it, it gives them a good reason why they failed if they struggle, that they wouldn't have done it that way, so to speak. So there's elements of it that have to sit with them for sure. But equally, there's a small pot of money available for us to sing from 10,000 feet higher up about the principles of what we're trying to do and how that can help people. John, do you want to come in on that?
Yes, please, if I may, Chair. I think it's really to empathise and agree with Faye. I think Faye and other members of the business board have repeatedly offered lots of support into our marketing, and we sort of take your advice in these forums, but we don't necessarily involve you in the nitty-gritty of it, which I can imagine must be frustrating over and over again when you keep asking. So it's just a commitment from me with Ed that, you know, we can't, as Austin said, particularly with the business growth service, we can't sort of take over the marketing, because they can then just put their hands in the air and say, well, I tried my best, but you did the marketing. If I've got no customers, it's your fault. But what we can do is we can influence their marketing, and we have 60 grand or more to contribute to it. So Ed, I think we really should get Faye and others directly involved in our marketing meetings with the contractor, rather than just consult them at business board meetings. I think that, you know, there's enthusiasm to operationally get involved, and I think we should grab that with both hands.
Thank you,
I'll take
John.
that as a way as an action, John and Austin and Faye, to include you in the setup of those meetings going forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Ed. And apologies to Faye and Rebecca. I'm offering your services without consultation, but I know you have a vested interest in making sure that we get the very best out of this, and I would welcome that. Thank you. So thank you, Ed. There are two recommendations here, A and B, to note the report and the activities, and if we could take that with an action to try and improve the interaction amongst the board members. To consult and get their views on things along the way, that would be very, very helpful. Ed, does anyone have any other comments? In which case, does anyone have any objections to noting the recommendations here and the action, and we'll move forward. All right, perfect. Thank you, Ed. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, I think we've dispensed with the body of the agenda now. In terms of taking the recommendations forward to the combined authority meeting, which I think is week after next, so I think it's a bit of thinking time for once in between. There are a number of recommendations that we will take forward. Let's hope we can get through them all in the combined authority board meeting within the time allowed at this next meeting. Had a very, very full agenda last time. I won't go through them all, but I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 recommendations to take forward to the combined authority board meeting, all of which are going forward with unanimous support from the board meeting. So thanks everyone for your support and patience in working our way through all of those. In terms of future meetings, the forward plan is appended to the board pack. Do members have any comments or queries on the forward plan? I don't intend to work through it, but is there any glaring issues there or anything missing? I see James's hand is raised. James?
Yes, Chairman, it was really about what you just had to say about the business board headlines for the combined authority. I think the business board brings forward an inordinate amount of exceptional work into the combined authority, and I know that it can seem to the business board that members of the combined authority are double checking on what the business board are doing. I don't see it like that. I think the fact is you bring forward so much important stuff, they want to know what's going on, and it's really good to see. So I know, Chairman, that the meetings can take a very long while at the combined authority, but the reason they take a very long while is because we're delivering so many projects with your help across the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and clearly I'd rather have a 4.5, 5-hour meeting and do something than a 2-hour meeting and do nothing. So but I do appreciate when you sit there for a long while and sometimes the members glaze over a bit at the end. I apologise for that. I'm sure you can understand
Yeah, no problem, James. No, I mean, it is testimony to you reflect on, you know, in my time over the last year, the things that have been dealt with and wrestled with during those meetings are phenomenal. Actually, there's a number of things that I recall other councillors commenting on the fact that they've been talking about some of these things for over 10 years, and finally we've got them moving forward. So yeah, no problem with that. Faye, I think you'd like to come in.
Yeah, just a quickie. On the next meeting, number 12, it says approved strategies for agri-tech, life sciences and digital sectors. My question is, has the digital sector strategy not already been approved months ago?
Can anyone recall? I'm not sure I remember going through that. Dom?
I don't think digital has been approved, Faye. Life science has.
Well, it wasn't digital the thing that Cambridge Marketing did, that was all network.
Yeah, and I think it's just been refreshed.
Oh, I see.
In light of the recent situation. So I think we're taking a paper to coming to board in March with Steve on the sector strategies.
Cambridge Wireless came and presented their original thinking on it. I think that's the thing you were referring to, Tina.
Okay. And Dom, you think that's captured in the forward plan in March? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments on the forward plan?
I don't know if it's just me, but I can't see any dates against the business board forward plan. If you get, there's dates against the combined authority, but not against the business board. They're summarised for each meeting, I think, Tina.
Yeah, if you look at the top of the table,
the header on the page tells you which meeting all of those points will get addressed.
Okay, I see.
Got it. Alrighty. Okay, we're in good time. Thanks everyone. The next board meeting will be on Tuesday, the 16th of March. In closing, can I just apologise? I skipped through the action plan earlier in the meeting and we didn't go and address that. But can I just give board members comfort that there are very few actions on there, and I am aware that any of those that are open are still moving forward, very much so. I don't intend to go back over those for the purpose of the meeting. So if anyone's got any issues, give me a shout. Is there any other business? Anyone got any other concerns? In which case we'll bring that to a close, and I'll thank you all for your time. All right, well, thanks everyone. Stay safe, and look forward to feeding back from the Combined Authority meeting in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.